Hello everyone, welcome back to our Maya series on our decorative box project. This is the third video. This is where we left off. Our box was partially modeled here. We just got a few more things we need to do. There was one tool that I was searching for last time and just kind of overlooked it, I think. It was in the place it normally is at, which is underneath the mesh tools. So we're just going to go ahead and add that to our shelf. We're going to go to mesh tools, and there's insert edge loop. They just kind of changed the look on it, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. So to add that to your shelf, hold down Control and Shift and left mouse button click, and you'll see it pop up right here. Okay, so now it'll be much easier to find than going to these drop downs and trying to search for it. Okay, so moving forward here, let me kind of demo what this Insert Edge Loop tool will look like. So I select my model here, turn on Insert Edge Loop tool, and it works just like this this tool we had in the modeling toolkit, the multi-cut tool. That's one of the features inside there. But if we want to just use it as this, we can just go through here, and it has to be on an edge. This is how the Insert Edge Loop tool works. So if you click over here in the middle, it doesn't work so well. But if you click over here on the edges, you'll see that, oops, it'll pop up with an edge loop, and then as you drag, so I'm holding down left mouse button, I haven't let go yet, so that way I can drag and decide where I want this loop to be placed at. That's very helpful. That's what we were doing over here. So if you're clicking on a horizontal edge, you'll get this vertical loop, and if you click on a vertical edge, you'll get a horizontal loop. See? Okay. And these loops help you gives you geometry to work with to help you manipulate your model to change the shape towards more what you're after versus the polygon primitive. Okay. Moving on. All right. So we got this new tool inside here. We don't necessarily need it right now because we used the multi-cut tool in the last lesson. But we are going to work on the feet now. So to do the feet, we're going to have to switch our component modes. Right now I'm in this edge mode, and that's because we're using the Insert Edge Loop tool. And to use the Insert Edge Loop tool, you have to be in edge mode. In fact, if you turn on the Insert Edge Loop tool, it'll automatically put you in edge mode because that's the only type of mode it works in. Okay, so what we need to be in is face mode. So we're going to hold down right mouse button on our model here, and we're going to go to face mode. We're going to select the corner faces that make up where the feet are going to be on this decorative box. Okay. Now I want to go into my 4-panel view so I can see these feet as I extrude them down. So I'm going to go and click on my 4-panel here, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit on each one so I can kind of see what's going on here. Maybe turn off X-ray so I can get a little better of an idea what's going on here. Okay. Same thing over here. Turn off X-ray. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, you see over here is still, those faces are still selected. So I'm just going to go ahead and activate my extrude tool, which is on my shelf right here. So I say extrude. If it's not on your shelf, you'll have to go back a video to go find where the extrude tool is. I'm not going to go and rehash old videos, but it should be on your shelf as long as you've been following along. Okay, so we're just going to pull down here like so. Oh, I pulled a no-no. This is something you want to be careful of when you're selecting faces. Sometimes when you're selecting, you might drag a little bit and you'll get a face on the other side, which is what you don't want to have happen. This could ruin your model. So sometimes it's good for the teacher to make mistakes. I can show you what not to do. So I'm just going to hit Control Z a couple times to undo the tool, and then unselect this face here. I'll just hold down Control. You see how a little minus button pops up next to my mouse? That tells me that I'm in deselection mode. So whatever I click on will unselect. So I just click that one time, and it's been deselected. Now I can re-extrude. So let's go ahead and go to my extrude tool here. And if you're unclear on whether you've extruded or not, you can always go to your history and check. Just jump out of this modeling toolkit. Just click on the tab over here that says Channel Box Layer Editor, and you'll be able to look up here. It says the last operations will be at the top, and I don't see any extrudes up here, so I'm pretty sure I'm safe. Now, if this isn't up here on your side shelf here, your Channel Box, Attribute Editor, Modeling Toolkit, all those are right here at the top. These 5 up here, those are what those are. With the exception of this one here, this is your HIK, which is something we're not going to deal with until you're in an advanced stage of Maya. It has to do with animation rigging. Okay, so back to the task at hand. We're going to go ahead and extrude again now. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull this down right down to the bottom there. Okay. Now same kind of deal. This matches up on one side but not the other. I'm just going to call it good because it's either going to match up with this one or it's going to be too long on the other one. So you have to kind of decide what you want to do. I don't really think it matters one way or the other. It's just a little bit of a difference. Like I said, this isn't going to be a tool inside of some big machine, so it doesn't matter whether it looks absolutely perfect. Now if we turn X-ray back on these guys though, that one and this one, you can kind of notice that, or even if you look back behind these guys, it's a little bit easier to see that these do narrow a little bit as they go down, and they actually slide inwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the scale function of my extrude to shrink the size of these feet a little bit at the bottom, and then I'm also going to switch to a different component type to kind of wedge them in a little bit. So I'm going to first start out by just scaling them. So I'll click on the box in the end. I'm just going to scale them together slightly. Okay. So all I did there is just clicked on the box on the end of the arrow. That changes it to scale mode. And then I clicked on the box in the center, which lets me scale in all directions, and just scaled it together by dragging it to the left a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, you don't want to grab these arrows and push them side to side because that does it to all of them simultaneously. So what you got to do is you got to exit out of your extrude tool at this point. So we're going to switch over to our vertex component type. So hold down right mouse button on top of your decorative box. You'll get that little floating menu and just go to vertex mode. Okay. And now I'm just going to do a marquee box over one side. So I'm just going to hold down left mouse button, just drag a little bit, tie this dot box. Doesn't matter how big it is, you just want to make sure it encompasses that little corner dot there. And you can go to your translate tool over here, or you can just hit W and that'll pop up your translate tool. You just go ahead and slide in a little bit. Same thing with this one, just go ahead and grab this and slide it in a little bit. Alright, not so worried about the inside ones, those ones look fine to me. Might do a little bit to these outside ones. Okay, so this is from my front view. I'm just going to slide those in a little bit as well. Okay. Okay, and that looks about right. Okay. Looking good, guys. Alright, so let's test here. Let's see what we got. Press 3. Go ahead and test it out. When we smooth it, we got a little bit of areas I don't really like. The reason why is because we just don't have enough geometry to hold it. Now, if you're going to put this inside of a game engine, you don't want to go and smooth anything because you end up with a ton more polygons than you would normally. Is what you do when you smooth it is it will eventually subdivide each polygon. So subdivide means that it will take this one face and turn it into 4 faces, and that will happen for every single polygon in here. So if it's right now, let's say this is 100 polygons. If I was to subdivide it, become 400 polygons, which eats up your poly budget if this is going inside of a game engine. So sometimes that's not really what you're after. But if this is just going into a regular film project, sometimes it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit higher on the poly count. So let's say that I don't really care. This isn't going into a game engine. I'm just going to, I just want this to look better in the end from a final render without having to use any kind of special maps. I could go ahead and bevel these sides here. See how that looks. Sometimes the bevel on doesn't really quite give me the look I'm after, but let's go ahead and test it out. So bevel is this one right here. That's the one we put on our shelf. So there we go. And if this bevel's a little bit too much, which I feel like it is, I can go into the inputs over here in my channel box, click on poly bevel, and you can see where it says fraction and offset and segments. So segments is right. We're at 1. Let's test fraction here. Let's put that down to 0.2. Okay. That looks a little bit more reasonable. Let's see what happens if we do 0.1. Well, 0.1 we may as well not even have it, it looks like. Let's go back to 0.2. Okay. Now one thing that happens here when you do this is you end up with an n-gon. Now an n-gon is anything that's 4 sides or more than 4 sides of the polygon. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides here, right? This is not good. Game engines don't like this. But if I wasn't sent it to a game engine, that doesn't really matter. But I don't really like this look that we got going on here. You can kind of see where like the polygon's kind of bending right here unnaturally. I could add some more geometry and help straighten that out, but I also have it going on these ones over here as well. So Some simple things I can do is add some more geometry, straighten that out, so I can go ahead and go back to my insert edge loop tool and just simply add some in. That doesn't really solve my end-gone problem at the top here. It actually, just makes it worse. So let's just go ahead and remove the bevels altogether. Let's keep it a little bit more simple. Let's just go ahead and drop in some edge loops and use those to hold the edges before we smooth them. So I'm just going to put one on each side here. And then I'll put one around the bottom. Okay. So this is what I'm doing here. The reason why I just did that is because when I smooth it, it's going to round everything off, like you saw before when I did the smooth preview. Now, if you didn't catch how you do smooth preview, one is the view we're currently looking at as far as hotkeys goes. And if you press 3, it'll move it into the smooth preview type mode. You can see how it kind of rounds off these bottom of these feet here, which is what we don't want to have happen. So we want to also add in a couple extra edge loops, so that way when it subdivides, it holds this geometry and doesn't just average it out. So I'll put that down near the bottom of the feet, and it doesn't have to be anything specific, really. Somewhere near the bottom is good. Okay, let's go ahead and test that out. Go back to 3. All right, we're getting a little closer here. I need to do another edge loop around the top to hold the shape there. Okay. Okay, so that looks good. Alright, I'm satisfied with that shape. That makes me happy. Now the reason why I keep going back to object mode here is because if you don't, what will end up happening is insert edge loop will stay turned on, and next time you click on an edge, it will drop an edge loop in. So insert edge loop is one of those ones you want to be careful with. It stays active until you unactivate it. Okay, so we are done with the modeling phase. Now we get to get into the texturing phase, which is the fun part because now we get to take this little grayscale block and actually give it some life. So at this point, we can actually ditch the reference images. We don't need those anymore. So we're going to go ahead and click V. That will take care of the reference images behind it. I'm going to go ahead and throw down a ground plane. That will make it to where we have a little bit more realism going on here. So I'm just going to go to our create drop down. I'm going to go to polygon primitives, and then I'm going to go to plane, and they'll just pop up in the center. You can't see it because it's inside our decorative box, but if I hit R for scale, I can go ahead and scale that plane up and then just put it down near the base. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and get rid of our grid too. We don't need that anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and, on my viewport right here, this icon says grid down here at the bottom. You can see that. Go ahead and click on that, and that'll make it to where the grid goes away. Okay, so now we got ourselves our ground plane. The grid's gone. We just now need some lighting to kind of give ourselves some dimension here. So we're going to create ourselves a directional light. So we're going to create lights, and we're going to go directional light. Okay, that one popped up there in the center. Now, I'm not going to explain a whole bunch on lights right now, but this directional light, I'll explain it. You can see how these little arrows are. They're pointing in one direction. Now, those arrows indicate which direction the light's going. Now, directional lights tend to go infinitely in whatever direction they're pointed at, so they kind of emulate sun rays in that sense, kind of, because sun rays don't go on infinitely, but they do as far as we can see with the naked eye. Okay, so let's say that our sun light is going to be hitting it from this direction. All right. I'm not going to mess with the intensity or any of that stuff right now, even though if you want to, you can go into the attribute editor and play with some of those things like intensity and color, shadows. You want to make sure ray trace shadows is turned on, which it is. So is all we should have to do at this point is just go over to where it says use lights. We'll go ahead and turn that on. And then we also want to go to shadows and turn this on. So now you can see that it's casting these shadows based off the direction of this light here. If I was to change the direction of the light, you can see how it also makes the shadows interact based off of the the direction of the light. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and jump into creating the textures for this box. And actually at this point we're going to go ahead and pause. I have a couple things that are coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, and the whole next lesson will be based on actually doing UV texture mapping and texturing. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.